They arrived without warning. No sound, no light, just presence. Two beings hovering silently above a planet they had visited before. A pale blue world spinning slowly in the dark. But this time, something was different. This time, the planet was dying, or so it seemed. A wall of ice stretched from horizon to horizon. Entire continents buried under sheets 2 miles thick. Seas had retreated, forests had vanished, and through the frozen tundra below, creatures the size of houses moved slowly through the blizzard, alive, impossibly alive, in conditions that would kill most life on Earth. The aliens had seen extinctions before. They had watched stars collapse and oceans boil. But what was happening on this world, this specific moment, this specific ice, was something far more interesting than destruction. It was transformation, and they were about to witness every second of it. Let's be precise about something most people get wrong. When scientists say Ice Age, they don't mean a single frozen moment in history. They mean a long, slow rhythm, a planetary heartbeat that has been running for millions of years. Earth has been technically inside an ice age for the last 2.6 million years. We are still in it right now. You are living inside an ice age. What most people picture when they hear those words, the frozen landscapes, the mammoths, the glaciers creeping across North America, that was the most recent glacial period. A pulse within the larger ice age that lasted from roughly 115,000 years ago to 11,700 years ago. And during that pulse, Earth became almost unrecognizable. Global temperatures dropped by about 6 degrees Celsius. That number sounds small. It is not small. 6 degrees is the difference between the world you know and a world where ice sheets more than 2 miles thick covered most of Canada, Northern Europe, and large parts of Asia. Sea levels fell by over 400 feet. Coastlines that exist today were dry land. You could walk from Siberia to Alaska. Britain was connected to mainland Europe. The Persian Gulf was mostly dry. The planet had been restructured, and into this restructured world, life had to adapt or disappear. The aliens watching from above had a question our scientists spent centuries trying to answer. What caused this? The answer was buried not in the ice itself, but in the geometry of the solar system. A Serbian mathematician named Milutin Milankovic spent decades in the early 20th century calculating something extraordinary. He realized that Earth's relationship with the sun was not fixed. It wobbled, it tilted, it stretched, and each of these movements, playing out over tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of years, changed how much solar energy reached different parts of the planet. 3 cycles working together like gears in a cosmic clock. First, the shape of Earth's orbit around the sun shifts from nearly circular to more elliptical over a cycle of roughly 100,000 years. Second, Earth's axial tilt. The angle at which we lean varies between about 22 and 24.5 degrees over 41,000 years. Third, Earth wobbles on its axis like a slow spinning top, completing one full wobble every 26,000 years. When these cycles align in ways that reduce summer sunlight over the northern hemisphere, snow stops melting. It accumulates, ice sheets grow, and as ice grows, it reflects more sunlight back into space, cooling the planet further, growing the ice more, reflecting more sunlight. A feedback loop that can lock a planet into deep freeze for tens of thousands of years. But the deep freeze wasn't steady. Within the glacial period, there were sudden, violent swings. Events called Dansgaard-Oeschger cycles saw temperatures in Greenland jump by as much as 15 degrees Celsius in just decades. Not centuries, decades. Heinrich events sent armadas of icebergs flooding into the North Atlantic, disrupting ocean circulation and plunging regions back into severe cold. The Ice Age was not a stable, frozen world. It was chaotic, violent, and constantly shifting, and the creatures living through it had to be extraordinary just to survive. Here is where the story gets almost hard to believe. The megafauna of the last glacial period were not the timid, struggling survivors of a dying world. They were enormous, powerful, and spectacularly well adapted to conditions that would destroy modern ecosystems. Start with the woolly mammoth, the icon of the Ice Age, and for good reason. Standing up to 11 feet tall and weighing as much as 6 tons, a fully grown mammoth was a living piece of architecture. Beneath its famous shaggy coat lay multiple layers of insulation, dense underfur, longer guard hairs, and a thick layer of fat that could be 4 inches deep. Its ears were small, reducing heat loss. Its trunk could sweep snow aside to reach buried grass. Its tusks curved dramatically, used to scrape ice, fight rivals, and signal health to potential mates. We know all of this not just from bones, but from bodies. Permafrost has preserved woolly mammoths with their skin, fur, stomach contents, and even their last meals intact. One specimen, a calf named Liuba, was so well preserved that scientists could study her eyelashes. But mammoths were far from alone. South America hosted something almost too strange to picture. Glyptodons. Imagine an armadillo. Now scale it up to the size of a small car. Now give it a solid domed shell. Not flexible like modern armadillos, but one rigid piece of bone, and a spiked club for a tail. These animals weighed up to 2 tons. They were walking fortresses, and they dominated the grasslands of South America for millions of years. There were also giant ground sloths, and when we say giant, we mean it. Megatherium, the largest, stood over 20 feet tall when it reared up on its hind legs. It was heavier than an elephant. It moved slowly across the landscape, pulling down trees with claws the size of swords. Cave lions prowled Europe, larger than any lion alive today. Short-faced bears in North America stood 12 feet tall on their hind legs. Dire wolves hunted in packs across the Americas with bite forces stronger than any modern wolf. The world was full of giants. And then, with shocking speed, almost all of them were gone. This is the mystery that keeps paleontologists awake at night. Between roughly 50,000 and 10,000 years ago, somewhere between 2/3 and 3/4 of all large land animals on Earth went extinct. Not just 1 or 2 species, dozens. In North America alone, 35 genera of large mammals disappeared. Horses, camels, giant sloths, mammoths, mastodons, saber-toothed cats, American lions, all gone within a geologically tiny window of time. 2 suspects, 1 crime scene, and the debate has never fully been resolved. The first suspect is climate change. As the glacial period ended and temperatures rose, ecosystems transformed rapidly. The vast productive grasslands that fed the megafauna, called the mammoth steppe, shrank and fragmented. New forests and wetlands replaced open plains. Animals adapted for cold, open environments, found their world disappearing beneath them. It is a compelling argument. But there is a problem with it. Earth had ended glacial periods before, many times, and while extinctions occurred, none of them looked like this. None of them wiped out megafauna with this speed and this completeness. Which brings us to the second suspect, Homo sapiens. The timing is brutal in its clarity. In continent after continent, the pattern is the same. Modern humans arrive, and within a few thousand years, sometimes a few hundred, the megafauna collapse. North America had never seen humans until roughly 13,000 to 15,000 years ago. Within 2,000 years, most of its large mammals were gone. Australia saw its megafauna collapse around 46,000 years ago, coinciding with the first confirmed evidence of human arrival on the continent. The overkill hypothesis, championed by ecologist Paul Martin, argues that megafauna in Africa, where animals had evolved alongside humans for hundreds of thousands of years, survived because they had time to develop fear of us. Animals in the Americas and Australia had never encountered a bipedal predator who could throw spears, set fires, and coordinate hunts. They had no reason to run. And we had every reason to hunt. The truth is almost certainly a combination of both. Climate change weakened populations. Human hunting pushed them over the edge. 2 stresses compounding each other with no recovery possible. The giants fell, and they did not come back. The megafauna were not the only ones caught in this transformation. For hundreds of thousands of years, before Homo sapiens spread across the world, another human species had dominated Europe and Western Asia. The Neanderthals were not the brutish, slouching primitives of outdated textbooks. They were stocky, cold-adapted, intelligent. They made tools. They buried their dead. They likely created art and wore jewelry. They survived in Ice Age Europe for over 300,000 years, an extraordinary feat of resilience that no modern human population has yet matched. And then, around 40,000 years ago, they disappeared. What happened is still debated. Interbreeding with Homo sapiens is confirmed. If you are of European or Asian descent, roughly 1 to 4% of your DNA is Neanderthal. Parts of your immune system, your sleep patterns, possibly even your pain tolerance may carry their genetic fingerprint. But interbreeding alone doesn't explain their disappearance as a distinct population. Competition for resources, disease, climate pressures, and simple demographic disadvantage, Homo sapiens likely had larger social networks, longer trade routes, and faster cultural adaptation, all likely contributed. The last Neanderthals may have retreated to the southwestern tip of Europe, to Gibraltar, where they held on in isolation for a few thousand more years before finally vanishing around 28,000 years ago. A species that had outlasted every climate catastrophe for 300,000 years, gone. And Homo sapiens, our ancestors, were the only humans left standing. The aliens, watching from above, were patient creatures. They had seen this world freeze before. They had seen it thaw. They had watched species rise and collapse and be replaced by something new. They were not worried about the planet. They were curious about what the newest dominant species would do next. Because here's the thing about ice ages. They follow rules. Milankovitch cycles are predictable. By current orbital mathematics, Earth should be drifting toward another glacial period over the next several thousand to tens of thousands of years. The natural cycle suggests cooling ahead, but the natural cycle has been interrupted. Human activity has raised atmospheric CO2 to levels not seen in at least 800,000 years. Some climate models suggest we have already delayed the next glacial period by tens of thousands of years. We have, in effect, accidentally overridden the orbital clock. But there are wildcards. The Atlantic Meridional Overturning Circulation, the AMOC, is the vast ocean conveyor system that keeps northwestern Europe warm by transporting heat northward from the tropics. Evidence suggests it is weakening. If it collapses entirely, some models predict rapid cooling across Europe and parts of North America. Not a full glacial period, but severe enough to disrupt agriculture, shift ecosystems, and destabilize civilizations within decades. We have never faced a climate transition as a technological civilization before. We don't actually know what happens next. The aliens keep watching. Every layer of ice that ever buried this planet also preserves something. A record, a memory, a message written in isotopes and pollen and bones that we are only now learning how to read. The last ice age didn't just reshape continents. It forged the conditions that made our civilization possible. The warming that ended it gave us stable agriculture. The extinctions that came with it removed the competitors that might have stopped us. We are, in the most literal sense, children of the thaw, but we are also the first species in this planet's history that can see the next climate shift coming, and theoretically do something about it. Whether we will is a different question. If you want to keep exploring the darkest mysteries of our planet, the greatest ancient tragedies, and the unstoppable forces that shaped our universe, make sure to hit that subscribe button right now. Leave a like on the video to help beat the algorithm, and let me know down in the comments. Do you think humanity is truly ready for the return of the ice? I'll see you in the next one.